Yes, people do want to learn languages.
They want to learn a language. They want to learn sign language. So imagine going on Liirn's platform and having a teacher teaching you French, and in the same platform, on the same page, taking you into France, into the Louvre, into the Arc de Triomphe, and visualize the words that you're learning in French and visualize everything.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's show. I am so excited because I have had an opportunity to actually spend a significant amount of time with my guest over the last, I think, month. We've had calls. I've gotten to know her in person. I was in New York last week. I was on her show at the iHeart Studios there, which was such a cool experience. And then I see yesterday that she is on my show today, and I'm like, yes, I can't get enough of this gal. She is salt of the earth, and you guys are going to soon understand exactly what I am saying. She's just somebody that's making such impact in the world, and her name is Grace Lovret. She is a finance wizard, an adventure enthusiast with over 50 years of asset management experience. She's the boss at Franger LLC and runs her own tax practice at GL Consulting LLC. Grace loves hopping on the entrepreneurial train as a board member for startups. We're going to go down that path too, where she gets to be a part of wild, get that everyone, wild, innovative ideas. But her heart, this got me, her heart truly belongs to children's education. She co-founded the awesome edutech startup, Liirn. And that's not all Grace is. Also, she does film and production. She's a studio partner. She's a podcast host. As I said, I was on her show, Becoming the Journey, last week, and has even dived in. Ready for this? She is also an owner of the Brooklyn Dumpling Shop, which is an awesome dumpling place, and she has franchised it in Vancouver. Her superpower, if there really is one that we could say, is mentoring young people on financial literacy and start to change the game on social inequality. This is so amazing. And Grace believes in a life with purpose and always paying it forward, which is what we're going to be discussing. It's not just about, right, this, end destination. It truly is the journey. And Grace, so excited to have you here and to dive more into all of the amazing things that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for that intro, Hilary. That was way beyond, and I thank you. I'm really kind of shy, so that was, you really brought out a lot.
Nothing shy about you, girl, right now, because there's too many things that I want people to know that you're doing. But one of the things that I really love to touch on, especially because it's near and dear to my heart, is this concept around you have had so many relaunches in your own life. You have gone from careers that you've had this massive success in finance and finance illiteracy, and the idea that how many people that are starting startups have that feeling, Grace, that because of when they were young, they were told girls aren't good with math. How do you feel about that? And what can people that are actually in their own company, their CEO, they're an entrepreneur, and they are feeling a little gun shy about finance and about running their business and scaling it and growing it? How do you work with these entrepreneurs?
I mean, the first thing I always think about is I need to be myself. For the last 50 years, more than 50 years, I've been a woman in a man's world. It's still a testosterone world, the financial world. I've seen it all. Some I choose to not even talk about, but they have to be their own person. They have to follow their own path. They have to think about and process before they even start that journey, where they're coming from and where they want to go. And so it's sort of like raising a child, because your company is your baby. And you're not going to force your child to start walking before they can walk. You're not going to put them in underwear before they're out of diapers or they want to be out of diapers. So it's the same thing. I look at it with these young founders and entrepreneurs, and even running my own business. You always have to walk before you run. And that has got to be the best advice. Never feel you're a failure, because every time you have a setback, that is just a rung up to success. Because without failures, we don't know what success is.
Oh, did everyone hear that? Without failures, you don't know what success is. That's so true. And I always think about that, statement that, success is an accumulation of the failures that you listen to and the reason that you're now there. It's so good, because people really do experience that, where they think, they have one big, massive thing that happens in their business. And they're like, all right, I guess this is a sign I need to be done. And I think you and I both have known that, especially, you got to get through it. You're learning the path. Nobody that I have ever worked with, talked to, has ever had that just, here's the path, now go and follow it, right?
Exactly. And it's never a straight path. And there's always different paths in between, forks in the road. That's how we learn. And quite frankly, I did not start out from when I was young. I wanted to be a child psychologist. That was my mission. That was my passion. And even when I started to work in the finance industry when I was 16, I was still in high school. And I got this job as a summer job, just to have a job. And the whole time I wanted to be a child psychologist. And I had the most amazing mentor where I was working. She took me under her wing, even though she knew I didn't want to be in the finance world. But she took me under her wing, and she just supported me and taught me everything there. And she used my mind the way she thought it had the capability of being used. And so I had that to fall back on, not thinking I would ever have to, but being in my third year of college, they gave me these case studies. I had 5 young children that I had to work with and had to visit the families, and I could not, famous word, detach. I took everything home. I cried. I was emotional. I could not put that mask on and be somebody I was not. And I realized, and that was my relaunch in my career. My true relaunch was to come to the decision that I was not going to be a child psychologist, that I would be in the finance world, because I was seasoned by then. I had continued to work in the same office all through high school and through college. And so,
you know what's fascinating, Grace, and this happened last week as well, and the first conversation we ever had, how many parallels there are. I had somebody that took me under her wing, and I thought I was going to be a doctor. Dad was a doctor. Grandfather's a doctor. I thought that's my direction. And in college, I'm like, this is so not what I want to do. Called my dad, and he's like, just make sure you're graduated in 4 years, because your out-of-state tuition is way too much for a 5th. And it was great, because I had this woman at Oracle take me under her wing, and she said, Hilary, your direction needs to be in financials and in manufacturing, selling these applications. And I remember thinking, and these were $1 million solutions for, very large companies. And I remember thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, how did I get here? But it was for 10 years, it was the best thing for me. But then things happened. And for me, it became this passion around startups. You've always had this passion as well around startups. Where did that come from?
So in the beginning, no, because back in the day, and considering I've been in this over 50 years, you can imagine how old I am. Back in the day, again, it was a testosterone world. And so it was hard but it was the world of IPOs, the bigger IPOs. And there weren't as many true startups today as there is today. And so I'm more lean towards the equity market, learning about these companies when they were, on the circuit, for the IPO. And so what was kind of where, but as I grew and I started to see some of these companies, the technology that was being developed, whether it be in tech or health or whatever you want to consider, it amazed me that, there was this creativeness out there that just so impressed me. And a lot of them were impactful. And I've always thought to myself, I need to have purpose. No matter what I do, I need to have purpose. And so in the last 10 years, I would say maybe a little bit more, I really started to look at these founders, and don't think I haven't thrown a lot of it away. But there are some really good founders who have integrity and no ego. I will not deal with anybody with an ego. And they have that passion, and they want to make a mark in the world. They want to make it a better place for the younger generation. And that's so not utilizing or not using that financial aspect of it. It's really become a passion of mine.
So let's go back to that financial aspect. And there's a tremendous amount of people listening right now that are trying to scale their business and may not feel like they're very good at the financials. What do you recommend for those people in terms of what can they do to start to feel comfortable with it, and what should they really be focused on?
The first thing I would suggest to them is never be that negative and think you can't deal with the financials. You need to approach it with a positive attitude that you can. And there is nothing wrong with reaching out, educating yourself in something you don't know. If there is something, for as long as I've been in this field, I don't know everything. And believe me, and you know this for a fact, Hilary, there are terms out there now that boggle my brain, like, what does this mean? And so, but I learn. I'm always learning. And that's what they need to do. One, they need to be positive about what they want to do and how they want to do it. And reach out to people who've been there. I give you a short story. I interviewed this young girl, and she went through, her passion was to be a pediatric gynecologist, which is unusual. And she went to college and she was doing that. And while she was in college, they did this field trip, this project with Rikers. And they worked with the inmates at Rikers doing jail to jobs. She absolutely loved it. And so she went to John Jay. She got a degree in criminal psychology, and she worked at Rikers with women that were there to help them mainstream back in. And she loved it. And so, you can't, and I had someone say to me that listened to the show, I wish they would have done that when I was in college, because I went for a financial degree. And when I started working, I was working 80 hours a week. Nobody told me that. She said, I couldn't handle it. So, take in as much as you can, whether you're in, I don't know if you have a high school student audience, high school, college, just learn it all. Don't just focus on one thing. Take it all in, because you'd be surprised sometimes what you think you want is not really what you want.
Oh, that's so true. And I have to say, I can appreciate what you're saying, because having told you that I was pre-med in college, and then I'm switching over in the only 2 degrees I could get in order to get out in 4 years were psychology and anthropology. So I went with psychology. And when I got out, that's when I started to move into what I ended up doing for 10 years with, high tech. Then I moved into helping people, consulting with their businesses to scale it. But I always had this fear that someone would find out that I didn't have a bunch of business classes. I didn't have the finance classes. So something I want to make sure that everyone hears, and I'd love your opinion on this, is that I went back and I actually took finance class. I took a course at Wharton School of Business, and ended up getting some of what I thought I needed. And then I realized none of it was relevant for what I was doing. None of it. But I had it now. I have those classes. But how do you get people to kind of realize that don't be embarrassed by what you don't have, especially if you're, switching and doing something brand new, but embrace it?
Because it's knowledge. Never be afraid of knowledge and learning, okay? But knowledge gives you the answers, okay? It's what those answers mean that give you wisdom. And that comes with experience, and that comes with being in it, being in the midst of it. So never, ever be afraid of asking somebody, I didn't understand that. Can you explain that to me? How many times, and I'm going to reach out to your audience, how many times you go to a doctor, okay, and they say, well, your results will be on the portal today with tech. Do you really go on that portal and say, oh, yeah, I understand all of this. This is great. No, you're not a doctor,
right.
Okay? If you open up the hood of a car because your car is not working, it's not running, and you look in there, no, you don't know, because that's not your expertise. But when you go to the mechanic, you'll say, so what is wrong with it? That's not embarrassing. So why would you feel embarrassed or shy to ask the questions and reach out to someone who's experienced it, someone who's gone through it, someone who's there in the office with you?
Yeah.
Do it. There is nothing embarrassing about learning.
Everyone, I hope you're hearing that. Right now, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to actually go into not just the professional side of this incredible woman, but the personal side. So you don't want to miss this. This episode is brought to you by my very own labor of love, my most recent book, ReLaunch. This book is a collection of my stories, other stories, and is a motivational guide to living a new 3HQ lifestyle, sparking your heart to ignite your life. It's available for purchase via Amazon. Get ready to try on the 3HQ method that I've been using for years throughout my entire life, reaching the next level in all areas, both professionally and personally. Get your copy today at www.therelaunchbook.com. Welcome back, and I am here with Grace Lovret. And I got to say, again, Grace, as you said, so many parallels in life that at the time, we may not even realize these intersections, but all of a sudden, when you're looking back, you're like, wow. And I talk about silver linings a lot, where you are, and would you ever change now anything about where you've been and what you've done, would you ever change what's happened so far to you?
Well, that's a rough one, because yes, and it's not what's happened to me, but what's happened to the loved ones around me. If I could change that journey for them, I definitely would do that. But for me, even through the bad times, the good times, it's made me who I am today, and I'm not finished. I am sure that there are.
No, you're not.
I look at life, we talk about ReLaunch, okay? And I look at ReLaunch as something you've done in your career and your business, and you're relaunching yourself. But personally, I think it's different. I think you sort of do a rethink, a reset. And there's not just one aha moment that makes you do that. It's all moments. Every moment that happens in your life is a reset if you allow yourself to learn from it. And that's the important part, is to take that moment, process it, learn from it, and then show up the person that you want to be.
And Grace, I know that from a professional perspective, you have so many irons in the fire, but personally also, you've got a lot going on. And I know that when we were talking at the end of your last week with your show, you brought something up, because I had specifically asked you. I said, all right, I want you to tune in. And it's a process everyone knows that I do with almost every single person that ever I come in contact with. But I said, instead of the personal tune in, I said, give me something professional. And it was super interesting, because at the end, in opening up, you said, well, actually, there's something really, really impactful that's going on in my life. Do you mind going there and sharing what's happening?
I don't. I go back to the many moments in our lives, and we've had amazing moments when the day you bear a child, you have your children, and the day you graduate. And these are great moments. We're never really prepared for the moments that are not so great, but I've gotten through it. What I find myself, and I've reset, I've relaunched, I've done all the work, because I do the work. But how do you reset and relaunch, getting the news that your daughter has stage 4 metastatic cancer? And I'm processing that. I am in the process stage right now, but that probably is the most difficult thing I've had to realize or face. So nothing behind me is as important anymore. It's not. It's just not. I've been there. I've done it. You want to call me successful, fine. But this is something that is going to take time.
Grace, how long ago did you find this out?
So 4 years ago, she was diagnosed with triple negative metastatic breast cancer. She had a double mastectomy, 16 chemo treatments, 6 weeks of radiation. And that was it. And she got through it like a trooper. And then in December of last year, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. It had metastasized to the brain. And I think that cut me down at the knees. I was in shock. You build that reset, you build all this hope and just, but so she had surgery in December. They removed it. She had radiation. She was on a lot of medication. And then a month ago, on May 30th, they found another lesion on the brain. So it's a hard reset. I don't think I'm ready to I don't even know if I can learn from this. I don't know.
Oh, you're deep in it. You're deep in it right now.
Deep in it. And I want people to understand that, you will be deep in things. And it doesn't mean that you have to pull yourself out of them instantaneously, process it, be in it, okay, understand it, and just support however you can and be vulnerable in it, because that's what makes us who we are.
So it's interesting in hearing the story. And my mom had a stage 4 colon cancer and had the big surgery. We thought, we're on the right track. She had the chemo. And then we had an experience actually in Las Vegas where we were listening to the fabulous Diana Ross on stage, and she came down from stage and came right up to my mom and started singing to her. And then the final song that she sang that night was "I Will Survive." And I thought for sure this was the sign. This was everything that I needed. This is the miracle, right? My mom had been living with me just during this time period where she was sick. And then a couple weeks later, we go to the doctor and got the bad news that it had spread. And people often have asked me, and you said it so eloquently around, we think that, we're supposed to get through things very quickly, like, positive thinking, you got to keep, but there has to be this time period that even as you're going through it, you give yourself, using your name, the grace to be in the moment of it frickin' sucks, right? And so how do you, having, the wisdom of the years that you have seen so many of the ups and downs in so many aspects of life, how do you do it?
I think I spend a lot of time talking to myself. That's my go-to. And that's how I sort things out. I sort of take a step back and become a third party in my own story, and look in and say, okay, how would you advise somebody to do that? How would you tell somebody? How would you talk to somebody? And it helps me to, and I go back to that same word, process, and sort of do that audit of yourself, where you are now, where you should be, where you want to be, whether it's, emotional or physical or whatever it is, you have to see the story. And you have to put it into perspective, and you have to process it. And anyone thinks that that's not the way to get through something, I don't know how else you would get through it.
We talk a lot about tuning out. There's a lot of people in the world right now that are just.
Of course they tune out. Yeah, because it's much easier to regret than to act. And so they tune out, or they give it up to God. I mean, I've heard that many times, give it up to God. But you can do that. I would never criticize anybody's faith, but it's real. And you're here and you've got to get through it, or not, but you at least spend the time processing it. So in the last 4 years, my partner went through throat cancer. So for an entire year, between radiation and chemo and patches, and he had a feeding tube, it was 1 year of just being there for him and getting through it. 1 month after he had the feeding tube removed and he was better, my daughter got diagnosed. So for 2 years straight, maybe more, 2.5 years straight, I was in the throes of all this. And when it all kind of settled down a little bit, I knew I was not in a good place. And I needed to find myself. So I got in my car and I took a 9-hour drive from New York to Canada. And that 9-hour drive had to be, and there wasn't a mentor, there wasn't someone talking to me, nothing. I just chatted with myself. And that was the best 9 hours I've had in a while. It just brought me back. And so people need to do things that, that help them. They need to be aware that there are many tools out there. It's not a one-stop shop. But just work at it, use the tools, work at them, show up as the person that you think you want to be.
Now, you and I are both fix-it type of women.
Yes.
We like fixing things. We go right into that fix-it mode. It probably has a lot to do with that we were in a man's world, and what do they like to do? Fix it, right? So with health, can't fix those things.
No, and it's funny because my daughter reminded me of that. Like, you can't fix this. I can't fix it. She said, I can't fix it, Ma. It is what it is. I can't control it. I can't fix it. And so she said, it's the same thing. But as a parent, when you're raising kids, that's what we think. We're always going to get them out of trouble, always going to fix it. If they fall and scrape their knee, we can fix that. But as you get older, there are things, you're absolutely correct, that you cannot fix. I do have one little piece of advice for someone. As you said, you're in a man's world, and never become one of the guys. Be yourself. I never stooped to that level where I wanted to be one of the guys, to think that that's how I would fit in. I didn't do it. And
that's the same advice that my mom gave me.
Yes.
She started to see me harden a bit. And what she said is, Hilary, don't ever lose your softer side. Don't ever lose you and what makes you, you.
Right. And you can get so much more with kindness. I don't think, and look, I'm not disparaging men in any way, but I don't think men can relate to kindness. And so they kind of take a step back, like, how do we figure this out? So just always be that kind, honest, maintain your integrity, never stoop to anything low to get anywhere you want to be.
Well, as we move on, I want you to know that there are many people listening right now, and energy is everywhere, and prayers, positive energy towards your daughter, towards your family, are coming out from all of the airwaves out there and YouTube and all the places that people are seeing this, to impact her and to give her that light and love that she'll need to continue this very personal journey. So thank you for opening up about that. And as we continue, I know that you do have a passion for children, and you and I talked about this on your show. I do too. This is something I've done. I built a company around keeping kids safe online. But share with us, Liirn, what are you doing these days that is, because when I talk about the G zone in your higher self, that best version of you, and you look at the G's, our growth, which we've discussed, gratitude, greatness, and how do you now, with this new project, what will be great for you? What are you going towards?
So I speak on panels, and I speak a lot about we need to start to reach out to our younger people, younger and younger. We can't wait until they're in high school and college, because they're lost by then. And the pandemic has proven that. So children's education is extremely antiquated today. The schools need to
no doubt.
Right. They need to step up to the plate. They need to teach differently. They need to allow these young people to interact in learning, which they don't. It's not appealing for a teacher to stand in front of a classroom and read from a book. It just is not, because of the internet and the phone and iPads. it's instant gratification for these young people, and it's it's everything is visual for them. That's how we need to start to learn. So Liirn does that. So Liirn is partnered. It is a platform, a private platform that no one can pierce. It's not a TikTok. It's not a Instagram. It's none of that. It's extremely private. And we are trying to get young people to go on this platform, and we've done it through teachers. So we've partnership with children, Calculus Roundtable, Native American schools, and their teachers are going on this platform with a lot of inner city kids, okay, and giving them the opportunity to learn by interacting and visualization. We partnered with the London Museum, because what the London Museum wants to do is they want to reach out to everyone, because a lot of people can't afford to go to London and go to a museum. But imagine if we can go on a page, okay, and in 3D or even live and learn. I'd give you a perfect example. Imagine learning a language, and you would be surprised how many young people want to learn a language. They just do.
Right. I'm laughing because I've been trying to take Italian online with a teacher for a year, my husband and I, and we have not progressed very much. So yes, people do want to learn languages.
They want to learn a language. They want to learn sign language. So imagine going on Liirn's platform and having a teacher teaching you French, and in the same platform, on the same page, taking you into France, into the Louvre, into the Arc de Triomphe, and visualize the words that you're learning in French and visualize everything.
That is so cool. We do have to take a quick break. And when we come back, everyone, I think that Grace, having all of the different projects that she's working on, she is one of the most optimized time person I've ever met. I want her to help us understand, how can you be involved in so many different things and actually be able to not feel like you have exhausted yourself. So we'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by my very own labor of love, my most recent book, ReLaunch. This book is a collection of my stories, other stories, and is a motivational guide to living a new 3HQ lifestyle, sparking your heart to ignite your life. It's available for purchase via Amazon. Get ready to try on the 3HQ method that I've been using for years throughout my entire life, reaching the next level in all areas, both professionally and personally. Get your copy today at www.therelaunchbook.com. Welcome back, everyone. I am here with Grace Lovret, and we are talking to and about all of the things that we can get our hands into. And how many times, everyone out there, raise your hand if you feel like, I can hardly even just handle one thing. How can I possibly bring on other opportunities? How do people like Tony Robbins have 30 plus companies that they're running? How does Oprah manage to do so much? Well, Grace has, as we've heard, has Liirn, where she's deeply involved in children's education. She has the finance, she has the tax, she has all of these different businesses, but she's been able to add on. She has the film as well, but she's been able to just recently add on yet another that is completely, as far as I can remember you saying last week, out of your wheelhouse, dumplings. And I let Brooklyn Dumplings, I believe it's called.
Brooklyn Dumpling.
Yeah, help us understand, like, if we are sitting here and we're feeling overwhelmed with just one thing, how do you help people understand about time management, about organizational management?
So I seem to think that it's a personality trait. I mean, not everybody can juggle 5 things. Not everybody can multitask, and there's nothing wrong with that. So the first thing I would say is being tuned to what you think you're capable, because if you can't give your best,
are you saying tune in?
yeah, I mean, I am.
That's right. Everyone, she's saying the tune in process.
Tune in. Just and know your capability, because your capability is not the same as this guy or this person or that person, but you want your capability to be your best. So if you can only do 3 things, then just do 3 things. You don't have to compete with the next guy. I'm a little different, I guess. I don't know. I've always been this way, even from young. Even in high school, I got involved in many clubs and drama and whatever, just because that's who I am. But don't think for 1 minute there aren't times where I say, hey, take a step back, because you're exhausted right now. And I allow myself that step back. But everything I do, all of these companies become a passion. And when you have a passion, okay, and you're involved, truly involved, when you're making a difference or you're making an impact, then it's easy, for me anyway, to devote this time to this and that time to that. But organization and structure somehow, I think, is inbred, and you need to have that from young.
So Simon Sinek often says, you got to get to your why. Why are you going to do something? Why are you going to take something on? And when you start talking about, let's just use the dumplings, the Brooklyn dumplings.
Okay.
What was the reason behind taking on that franchise that you went forward with in Vancouver?
So there's 2 parts to that story. One is the franchise itself is sort of like a challenge to me, because I needed a challenge at this point. I needed to just do something different. And this is totally different, because it's one thing being on the board of a startup and being part of advising and seeing them, but you're not the creator. You're not, they are. This is absolutely hands-on and something I've never done. I'm not going to say that the dumplings are amazing, and anybody in New York or in Texas, or just look them up, we're opening up many. So that was really why the Brooklyn Dumpling Shop. I just love the dumplings. Why Vancouver? Because one, it gave me an opportunity to be the first international franchisee for dumpling, which was sort
of. Is Vancouver one of your favorite cities?
It is. I mean, New York will always be my love.
Right.
I am a true New Yorker, but Vancouver is stunning.
I agree. I love it.
Beautiful. And I have to tell you, for the many times I've been there, the people have been just so wonderful, just kind and nice. But in Vancouver, since I am, and I will tell you this, I am a U.S. citizen, okay? I try not to use the word capitalist, but I am, in a way. When I'm in Vancouver and I'm opening up these franchises, there is no way I am not going to give back to that community, because they're welcoming me. I'm a U.S. person coming into their country, opening up a business. So my employees will all be Canadian. A percentage of the profits will go to some community project, whether it's a women's shelter or homeless or children's hospital. I will not be in Vancouver and not give back to the community. And
let me ask you a quick question before you continue, because I've had this asked of me recently. When you talk about giving back on a percentage, and especially being in finance the way you are, what do you think is kind of a good percentage for somebody to say, I'm going to give this amount back?
So I think 1%, and I've talked to many authors who have written some really good books, and some of them give back. I mean, I spoke to an author, wrote a book on climate, and she's giving back, some of the proceeds to climate change. And so I don't think there's any one set formula. I'm a startup. Technically, I'm the startup now.
Right.
So, 1% of profits is where I'll start if we're killing it. I don't mind, but you have to understand that even 1% of a profit given to a foundation or nonprofit is so appreciated. They don't care how much it is. They just so appreciate that you're part of that community and you're giving back and you're helping. So that's the way I look at it. It
is interesting. It is interesting that when we say we're doing something, I did book sales and I did it for breast cancer awareness here in the local area, right? I felt that was super important. But then on a bigger scale, with our core signature course, the Fired Up Entrepreneur, that's where we donate to Charity Water. And when I was really evaluating, it became, I want to know how many people for X amount of money are we going to impact, right? So that's how I kind of, instead of the 1%, I looked at it like, I want to be able to do X amount. This is what I'm going for. So I really can appreciate how you have to really take a look at what are you trying to do?
Exactly.
What's really going to light you up?
Whether it's $100 or $100,000, you're going to make an impact.
Yeah.
But it's the thought behind the fact that you're actually doing that.
Yeah. It's really great. That's all part of the G zone, right? It's that gratitude. Right. It's like you're grateful.
And that's where you move forward, you give back.
Yeah.
And I don't think we do enough of that today, to be honest with you. And I am a huge proponent of mentoring. We need to mentor more. We need to have, I sat at a table at a high net worth conference of all these very wealthy people. And I proposed something to them. And I said, why don't we just every one of you, take one young person under your wing for 6 months and mentor them? How would that be? How would that look? And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And not one of them jumped on that bandwagon. And it disappointed me, because imagine the snowball effect that would have if just someone like me, and I do, and you, or someone else, or a college student, or someone out of college getting in the job force, kind of took some young person under their wing and said, here's the good, here's the bad, here's the ugly. Imagine what that would do for society. And we don't do that. We just don't do that.
I think an easy way to do that for everyone listening, and shout out to my Julia, my fabulous intern for the summer, have an intern, have somebody, but don't necessarily pawn them off on somebody else in the company. Have ownership for that impact that they are going for a summer internship. So easy place. Where else do you recommend people go if they do want to start thinking about mentoring somebody?
That when I started my podcast, which is Becoming the Journey, it was more my guests were more guests that would actually have a story, a journey that I was hoping would impact someone listening. And my goal was to start this challenge, this mentoring challenge, and offer these college kids to take one young person under their wing and mentor them for 6 months. And it hasn't come to pass yet, but I think I am going to be able to do that on one of the projects I'm working on right now. But it's simple. Just anyone thinking that they've experienced something, and we've all experienced something. And I want to tell you, you can learn from that young. I learn a lot from my.
I already am. It's incredible. She's got such great energy, and she's taking the tune-in process into colleges. That's what we're working on right now. Right. Love it. Okay, but wait, we are unfortunately almost out of time here, and I want to make sure that people can get access to you. How do they find you? Give us a little bit of those details.
So you can find me on Instagram at Becoming the Journey at Instagram, and you can also Becoming the Journey at gmail.com. I am on LinkedIn. Anyone that knows my name will find me on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I would be more than happy if you're young and you just want financial advice. I would be more than happy to give you any kind of financial, not advice, knowledge that you want. And I'm not charging you for it. So don't think, well, what am I going to pay? I love mentoring young people. I love to get them on the right journey. So,
ooh, okay. Love that. My 3 kids, 2 stepkids, they're all going to be calling you.
That's fine. They can do that. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, again, Grace, such a pleasure as we continue to get to know each other that much better. And I have such deep respect for you. I will have everything over in the show notes. And I am going to do a call out for those that are listening, for those that can make sure that you are spreading the ReLaunch love throughout your own community. Please go over to the ReLaunch podcast and give us a 5-star review and share it with one person that you think that you can help impact along their specific paths, because there are going to be those forks in the road. And what we're hoping to do here is help people navigate those paths a little easier. So for now, everyone, live now, love now, relaunch now, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you, Hilary.
If you like this video and want to get more like it, head over here.